Have you ever been left out? What about overlooked? Like your feelings didn't matter. Maybe someone you cared about changed their mind about you. Or maybe people decided they were done with you without any explanation. That's a lonely place to be. It leaves you wondering if there's still a place for you and if anyone really cares. I think most of us, if we're honest, have lived through moments like that. In fact, I recall a situation in my own life that left me completely lost. I remember being a child and my parents splitting up. But the weirdest thing happened. Throughout their divorce, my dad stopped talking to me. He didn't visit, he didn't call, but he stayed in contact with my brother. It was really weird, and I couldn't understand why. I was left wondering, what did I do wrong? Why wasn't I wanted anymore? Well, it wasn't until years later that I found out he wasn't my biological father. He had raised me from age 2 to 9, but once the divorce happened, it was like I no longer belonged. He stepped out of my life because in his eyes, I wasn't really his. Well, that kind of abandonment, it sticks with you. It raises questions you don't always get the answers to. Questions like, am I forgettable? Am I replaceable? Does anyone still see me, or do they care about what happens to me? I think this is why Genesis 21 hits so hard for me, because it taps into that feeling that so many of us have felt, especially me. In this chapter, everything is finally going right for Abraham and Sarah. The long-awaited child, Isaac, has been born, and God's promise is fulfilled. But right in the middle of their celebration, someone else's world is falling apart. Sarah sees Ishmael, Abraham's son with Hagar, laughing, and she demands that Abraham send Hagar and Ishmael away. And in Genesis 21 verse 14, we see ultimately how Abraham responds. It says, Abraham got up early the next morning, prepared food and a container of water, and strapped them on Hagar's shoulders. And then he sent her away with their son. And she wandered into the wilderness of Beersheba. Hagar and her son are left out. They are pushed away with no explanation and given a minimum amount of resources to survive. And just when we think it can't get any worse for Hagar and Ishmael, their water runs out. It most definitely looks like all hope is lost and they are not going to survive much longer. So Hagar, feeling overwhelmed with grief, put her son under a bush and walks away. And then we're revealed with a life-changing truth. When people are abandoning you, God is near. We see that in Genesis 21, verses 17 through 19. It says, God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. I will make him into a great nation, he says. And then God opens her eyes, and she saw a well of water. See, people had cut her off, but God leaned in closer. People were finished with her story, and God was just getting started. Let this be a reminder that when you are rejected and abandoned by people, God is still there. You may feel pushed out or forgotten by someone that you trusted. You may be carrying the weight of a relationship that suddenly ended. Or you may be in a season where people stopped showing up. But hear this, God hasn't walked away from you. He hasn't pulled back his promises, and he hasn't changed his mind about you. The same God who made a way for Hagar and Ishmael can still make a way for you. I've lived this truth in my life in places where I felt unwanted. God gave me a sense of identity. In the silence where I had questions, God gave me purpose. What I thought was the end of being loved by a father actually became the beginning of being fathered by the Father. For me, this began with a cry to God, a cry that he heard, just like Hagar's son cried. So today I challenge you to cry out to God. Say what's on your heart, even if it's messy, confusing, or quiet. Even if you're in a place where you feel like you've been abandoned, trust that you are still seen, you are still heard, and you are still wanted.